How you doing?
We are up and running.
For quick little shout out to anybody who's joining us on the recording. Big shout out to you guys. And to everybody who's here with us live, welcome.
Hold on
Good.
a second here. Let's just see here. I'm just seeing the, okay, live. Great.
You're
Beautiful.
natural.
We're
Well
up
done.
and running.
Great work. 7 p.m. Israel Standard Time.
We're back.
12 p.m. EST. We're back.
Part two.
Round 2. Here we go. And for anybody who's looking for the intros and small talk, you can check out the first live. It's up on both of our LinkedIn's.
Last week.
Exactly. And if you need any help, be in touch.
Let's do it. Nice to see you, Harael.
Better to see you, Rabbi.
Nice to see you.
So tonight we're talking about accountability. And for me, I have my own journey with it in my own work and my own life. And anybody that I've worked with in a mentorship relationship or more recently in a coaching relationship, it's way more than a word and way more than a concept. So tonight we're going to pick your brain and your experience on what this word means to you, what you see, what you've seen in your experience, what you see currently in different forms, and specifically in how it relates to this incredibly beautiful, blessed Orthodox life that we live, as I've been reminded, with how many added goals and layers of growth we're searching for. So, yeah, let's jump straight in.
Let's get right into it. Right into it.
What did this mean to you without being cliched? Has this always been a concept in your life? Through high school, through school?
Listen, I'll tell you like this. I have spent a lot of years in my younger life in the world of sports.
Yeah.
Like the Olympics right now are like incredible. Okay. I find myself looking at highlights like it way too often. But, if I look back in the worlds I was a part of when it comes to the world of sports, there were many things that coaches did along the way. Okay. But I think that the biggest thing that the coach got you to do was to show up and do the work.
Yeah. Is that do the work line again?
And that's what I found more than anything else. And is that the world of accountability to get things done in anything in life is a total game changer. So when it comes to the most important areas of your life, whether it's your personal life, whether it's your professional life, and unfortunately, there is a stigma to it, which is a problem, which is if I need someone to hold me accountable, then it must mean that I can't do that myself. And that's what a battle and a tension I find a lot of people struggle with, where it's almost like giving in, and unfortunately that negative connotation, I think, holds people back from really being able to achieve goals, do more in their life, get a certain place. I have seen in every experience that I could think of, when I've brought the right people into my life to hold me accountable to things that I could have done without them, I just see everything changes so fast. Things actually get done. Things stay front and center in my life. And hello.
Yeah, as you speak, it brings up this line in my mind, which I suffer from. I would say almost everybody that I sit across suffers from, which is I should be able to do this on my own. This self-imposed responsibility for superhuman delivery.
Right. And the answer is, I would say, and the answer back to you is that you're right. If you lived your life in a lab and this is the only thing you had to do, of course you could do it on your own.
Right.
Right? Watch some videos, read some books, done. You got the techniques and done. Maybe you need one person, at one point to come in and show you you're doing things exactly right. But You're right. If you were living your life in a lab How old's your baby, your recent baby?
She is, correct me if I'm wrong, 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Like, if you're living your life in a lab, like, okay, but like our lives are not like that. And therefore, what happens is we need to think about, like, what are the really important things in our life that we want to accomplish and take care of,
Right.
and what accountability measures or people allow you to do is to make sure those things actually don't just get swooped away with the wind of everything else that life brings our way. So you're right. If I look at things that I've taken on with people to help hold me accountable, could I have done on my own? 100%. It wasn't rocket science that they gave me.
Right.
But the problem is that there's so many other things going on. Like,
yeah, you speak about if life was in a lab, and my mind goes to if we could live in one lab at a time. Another dream that our mind convinces us we can do.
Okay, you're right. So that's a different world. That's the world of compartmentalization. We'll get there also, but that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we live in a world today of where information overload, and that's also a huge thing that creates so much noise that doesn't allow us to follow through on the things that are really important.
You speak about your history in professional sports and your affinity for it. Why is it that the sports world, an accountability expert, coach, whatever terms we like to use, why is it the done thing in that world? But in the world of personal growth, and even I would say in business, we have this pushback that we should be able to do it on our own.
So I would even argue more than that. There was one point in my life where I was living in Boulder, Colorado, hanging out with a lot of endurance athletes, some of the most famous ones out there. Okay, during my time, people who won the Ironman, people who were cyclists and riding in some of the best races in the world, top runners, like unbelievable athletes. And it wasn't just something that they did; it was like the more you had, like the greater your status was.
Right. The more coaches.
It was like a symbol of like, look how much I'm investing in myself. Look how much I'm taking myself seriously. Like, I got a coach for this. I have a coach for that. I have a coach for this. And none of these coaches, I used to watch a lot of these athletes with their coaches. It was very rare that the coach was telling them, change your technique like this, do this. It was just like, okay, one more. Okay, let's make. So it was almost like it was something that they were proud of. It was something which they saw as something which is so incredible. So it wasn't just like they did it because they had to. It was a symbol of like how serious you almost took your life. But I think that when it comes to our personal lives or it comes to our professional lives, unfortunately, I think that too many people don't think that way.
Right.
And where does that come from? I don't have a great answer for you. And I've yet to hear from someone a great answer they gave to me. But for some reason, unfortunately, when it comes to us making breakthroughs in our personal life or us making breakthroughs in our professional life, there's some, idea that we've all kind of incorporated into our life that like, oh, that's something that we can do ourselves. We should be able to do ourselves. And tapping into any resources looks like a bit of a weakness.
Yeah. For most of us. Yeah.
So I don't have a great answer for you, but I have never heard one that like really resonated with me.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Have you heard anything? Meaning, what's the feedback you've gotten?
I'm really intrigued why in the sports world, people collect them as accolades. Are there any other worlds of where it is part of the almost their accolades is how many coaches you have?
That's the only world I experienced it in. Like I saw it up front. I saw, people traveling with their coaches, hanging out with their coaches, hiring more coaches. Like I've seen that. I haven't necessarily seen it in other industries for two reasons. Number one, I haven't necessarily looked there. And number two is that I haven't experienced that. So
I've seen it with some CEOs. Some CEO clients that I have coaches for different things. Specifically a fitness coach, or one or two different sports coaches, one or two different business coaches. Sometimes with specialities.
What's the impact you've seen on those CEOs? And I would say even more than that, why those CEOs, like what made them say, hey, let me take that on while others don't?
If I had to pick one thing, it's the ones who are open to trying. So I haven't met that many that just dreamed about having multiple coaches and made it happen, but we're just open to different people who could add value in their lives. And I think the impact, I don't want to speak for them, but I'll speak for me, is when I have committed to processes and coaches and accountability partners or programs, when I look back on my last few years, some of my greatest achievements and growth have come from them. It sounds cliched, even as I say it.
Sounds like you drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, because it works. Because, as you say, life is so busy, and there's so many lines on a page that I should get to, and I can show you the notes I wrote last LL that were based on the LL before, that were based on the LL before. There's a lot I should get to, and thank God I get to quite a bit. But outside of the engagements and the work that I do with coaches or with systems, I would say the rest of it is more a source of guilt than inspiration. Mm-hmm. Why? Because I know I should get to more of it, but I don't. And I think it's that should word. Like, it's simple stuff. Mm-hmm. Why don't I get to more self-care? You've coached me in it. I can go on and on and on. But unless I actually have a actual coaching relationship or an accountability partner or a system that I'm running, I just don't get to it, because life, as you said, is busy. And thank God life got busier 6 weeks ago with our little Tzipora.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put something out there. I didn't want to say it before, but I'll put something out there. In the athletic world, you have two things. Number one, there's a clear end goal.
Right.
And number two is this is their whole life, meaning wanting to achieve that goal. And what happens a lot of times when it comes to our professional life or comes to our personal endeavors, those two things aren't necessarily there. We give a lot of maybe lip service to it, or we want it to be there, but those two things aren't there in that same manner. So just wanted to put that out there as a theory. It's not a strong theory, but if I had to give something where my mind goes, it goes in that way.
Which has a lot behind that. How to get to that clarity and that focus.
Right. 100%. Again, unfortunately, one of the biggest problems I see with many people, including myself, is that a lot of the things that we say that we really want, we don't really deep down desire them. And therefore, what ends up happening is we speak about it a lot, but things don't get done. And one of the greatest ways of how to take things that you want, but you don't necessarily feel it, is when you bring someone else into the picture to help move something forwards. That's one of the greatest things. One of the questions I speak to people a lot about is I always tell them very clearly, when people really want something, it's amazing how they think about like a solution. Like when people like really desire something, they think outside the box, they network, they call this person, they try this out, and then even more than that, they're energized and they're staying up late at night. And then people, like, if you don't really want something, you don't network, you don't really think of out of the box solutions, etc. And then even more than that, you get tired, you skip a few days, like all these things. So a lot of times we know things that we want to be like really true in our life. Like we know, like we want to be great at this, but maybe deep down inside we actually don't feel it. One of the ways of how to actually allow us to make progress on things that even though we know are true but we don't feel is when you bring people into your life to help hold you accountable to those things.
I'm so grateful that I'm one of the first sign-ons on your program.
I listen. We're speaking. We're preaching. Like we're talking the same language. I'm speaking to myself as well. I've seen this in my own life.
Yeah,
I have people now in my life that I pay, whether it's weekly or monthly, to do things that I know I could get done, but they just force me to do it. If I know once a week, okay, I'm going to be sitting down and I'm going to be speaking to someone and going through all of my children, what do they need, where am I messing up as a parent, how can I set them up for success next year, and that person's forcing me every single like that. Like that's a game changer for my life. And in my schedule, you can't book a meeting during that time. I meet with that person. And unfortunately, if I probably didn't have that meeting as important as my family is to me, I can very easily see, well, like it's a busy week, or like I'll get to it next week, or we could talk about that at the end of the summer. Like,
yeah. So I think that's a great place to now jump from the world of professional sports and business. We'll come back potentially to both, to what is the Torah view on accountability.
Listen, if you look at the world of how Judaism looks at personal growth, about how to change in your life, about how to become the person you're meant to be, if you look at sources across the board, okay, they speak nonstop about having mentors, having friends, being a part of groups. Like it's everywhere. Why? Because it's just dealing with the natural reality of the busyness of life, of things, can take us off track. And therefore, what Judaism does nonstop is always trying to give us these practical tips to help us achieve the goals we want. And if you look at people, okay, if you look at, if many people I've seen, let's say, mentors or rabbis of mine, okay, I've seen that their world of growth, like so many people have been a part of that.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that anyone who wants to speak about, okay, and again, no matter what race or religion you are, anyone wants to speak about like achieving goals, becoming great, focusing on the important areas of your life, making sure that you are on track. Like the real thing is like, how can you not speak about accountability systems? Like it would almost be irresponsible or like naive to like. So, I think that what I have seen, especially in the teachings that I've spent time on in Judaism, like I've seen that as like a obvious, clear, super spoken about concept in many different ways. And there are many different forms of how to do it. But like, hello.
Yeah, as you speak that out, to go back.
Say even more, just add more. This is not just modern day, Jewish philosophers. This is from many years ago, from way back when. This is not just a new idea because people are weaker and your life's so disorganized and
smartphones.
Yeah, it's not just that.
Yeah, I'm thinking what my learning would be if I didn't have my chavrusa every morning. Tough stuff.
Different ballgame.
Tough stuff. As we're talking, I'm thinking through in the business world, when we see a lot of the books we read and a lot of what we see coming through the literature and the people we celebrate, a lot of times their coaches aren't focused on in the stories. But you're familiar with the book, $1 Trillion Coach?
Nope.
I'm going to have to get you one. I might have one here.
Okay.
I think it's in another room. But yeah, there were coaches to the Apple guys, the Google guys, a lot of the big tech that we are $1 trillion companies today. In the background were these coaches that now we're starting to learn more about. One of our favorites who we learn a ton from is Matt Moshari. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Sure.
He coaches Sam Altman at OpenAI. So when we're reading about these companies, a lot of what's going on, very rare that the coach in the background gets any kind of focus there, or who held those CEOs accountable. So I'm just thinking one idea why we don't see it so. And this doesn't answer why. Why in the sporting world it's such a front and center obvious accolade, but in the business and personal growth world. But I guess in the Torah world, it is more of an accolade. I'm proud to call you Rabbi Gershenfeld, Rabbi Jacobs, Rabbi Klein, the list goes on, of people who really instrumental in my growth, and in the times I was studying under them really held me accountable, especially for the classes I actually made.
Right.
So that's a big thank you.
Okay.
Listen,
I have my own list.
Right.
I have my own list. And this is a real thing. This is a real concept that unfortunately, again, I just think that people are not proactive about it. Now, to answer your question, why people in these books of, I've read books about CEOs and certain companies that I've done. I'm not sure why they don't write more about the consultants, or don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. Okay, but if I had to bet money, I would assume that there were people there highly involved, across the board, whether it's with the company, whether it's just the CEO, whether it's there are people across the board helping them to get to where they got to get to.
Yeah. And holding them accountable week to week, whatever those engagements were.
100%.
Last week we were speaking a lot about this cheshbon hanefesh process, starting in Elul and running throughout the year, and really using that energy and that pressure as a catalyst for growth throughout the year. And it's got me thinking now that in the 6-7 years I've been doing this merry-go-round exercise of Elul pressure, get some goals out, never once did accountability cross my mind in that process of how am I actually going to achieve these. And it's very, very telling to me that that's just not even part of the thought process. And the other side of it is, obviously, I believe at the time when I'm setting the goals that I'm going to be disciplined enough. And I feel like those are the opposite sides of the coin, is I can use my discipline, or I can use an accountability system or accountability partner or friend or guide or whatever it may be. Very helpful.
But the fascinating insight, though, is that when you're sitting down, you're planning all these things, that what we're saying is that a huge part of the planning process should be, okay, what am I going to do to, who am I bringing onto my team in order to help make sure that these things come alive?
Each goal should have it next to it. What system or human being is actually...
Each goal or each section or whatever it may be.
100%.
But it's a fascinating thing that, here you've been through 7 years, like that was never really focused on and discussed. Interesting idea.
Yeah, not even a thought. And then the same comes around when we do a lot of business planning also, which is a bit different because the team can be used to hold each other accountable.
If you have a team, and sometimes if you're, let's say, the CEO, everyone's expecting you to run the show.
Even if you're not the CEO, I would say, I'm thinking about it now, that each individual has their own goals that they go into their own office or their own cubicle and should achieve.
Right.
So the same thing comes around.
I'm on the same page as you. I agree with you 100%.
Okay, beautiful.
And again, I think what it comes down to, is that, again, this idea of like, how important is it to you? I'm just going to be totally honest with you. Okay. I'm going to put myself out there a little bit.
Yeah,
if I sat down before Rosh Hashanah and wrote down my goals, and I probably really felt like I've got to achieve these this year, like this is everything, I probably would make the step at that point to say, okay, who could help me with this? Who could hold me accountable for this? I probably would do that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, probably a little bit what's going on is that, okay, these goals are important and I want to make them happen. And they are the top priority in my life. But deep down inside, maybe there's a part of me that, if I achieve them or not, okay. I almost feel like satisfied by the fact that I wrote them down. I have a place I can point to saying these are my goals, but like, am I staying up late at night trying to achieve them, trying to figure out how to make them happen? So
you got me thinking of which is more important to me in, let's say, Elul, when it comes to these top, more personal life goals, or the energy of December, January for business and work. Which is more important to me, the actual goals or the fact that I ticked that box and I now have a set of goals? If I'm honest with myself, it's probably the latter.
Yeah.
Which is so backwards.
Yeah, it's backwards. But again, when we sit down, we make those goals, we at least feel like we're being responsible and we have desires. And again, there's no one who's making goals, whether it's for their professional life or their personal life, saying that, like, I don't want to achieve these or they're not important.
Yeah.
The question becomes, like, how important are they? Like, how much do we really want to get to this finish line? And unfortunately, I'll put this on me. The answer sometimes is, you know what? It's not that big a deal.
You wear many hats. CEO coach, career coach, marriage coach, relationship coach. What's your title at Machon Yaakov? Esteemed author, etc., etc. I'm intrigued. Would you say that this piece around accountability as a solve for discipline and to just get the things done that we want to get done, would you say that is the thing people struggle with the most? As a common theme, as a common thread?
I think I would put it the opposite. I would shift it in more of a positive way.
Okay.
I think it's the thing that people would benefit from the most.
Right. Beautiful.
Right. I think it's the thing people would benefit from the most. And a lot of us are doing different things.
Yeah.
And many of those things, unfortunately, a lot of times we put things all on the same, kind of level. A lot of times there should be things like, whoa, there are priorities and there are things that are lower. But I think that for anyone who, whether you just know it to be true or, for anyone who you just know it to be true or you would like it to be true, if anyone's trying to really achieve anything in important areas of their life, I just think that accountability is just such a weapon of such good that if people thought about it more and really tried to infuse that into their goals and plans, life would look different in so many ways.
Do you have a gift in the form of a shortcut for anybody who is listening now or in the future who isn't going to get the gift of joining your program? What would you say is like your one most important idea people could focus on in the world of accountability?
I would push back and say exactly what you just said before. When you're sitting down and making, whether it's personal goals or you're making your professional goals, when you look at that plan, a question you should really be thinking about is how can you be held accountable to these things? And what I would tell people to avoid is just by saying, don't push off that question by saying, oh, I'll do it. Think about it. And again, there's millions of different options of accountability. I mean, we haven't even gone there. But like, if you're going to sit down and you're going to make goals, whether it's for the upcoming Jewish year, or whether it's for, come December 2024. Sit down and think about when you make those lists, make a very clear part of those lists saying, okay, how can I be held accountable for these things? And don't let the option just be, okay, I'm going to do it myself. Or this is the better one. I'm going to try it myself. If it doesn't go, then I'll, which is, again, something I hear a lot.
So sorry, just to make sure we're on the same page. Your one most important nugget would be, in your planning process, always be clear what your accountability plan is.
Correct. And that can be for any goals that you're trying to set, whether it's in parenting, your physical health, your marriage, your professional life, your spiritual endeavors, anything. Let's put on, when you're putting that list together, think about the world of accountability in a very strong way. And I would say even more than that, try and look at it in the positive light, as this could be the very weapon that could actually allow you to accomplish these things.
Big sentence, that.
Listen, I'm just telling you what I've seen to be true in my own life.
Right. You touched on frequency there. And as you say, you've had amazing experience in your own life and in your practice and in your work. And I know in the Harvest OS, we go all the way from annual, quarterly, monthly, weekly, all the way down to daily eventually. Let's give people another nugget. If people were going to implement one piece of accountability to achieve their goals, which period there would you say is the key one to solve for? They could only do one.
Meaning what? If they were gonna, meaning what would the frequency be, or what would the area be?
No, if you could choose one frequency.
One frequency.
Because ideal is annual, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, to have some form of check-in or accountability at those pieces is the ideal, as what we see. But if you could choose one, which is the one that you think is the biggest game changer?
I'll tell you like this. My answer to you is, I'm going to dodge the question a little bit.
Nice. Thanks for
I just think the most important thing is that it's consistent.
Nice.
Okay. So whatever system you're going to set up, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it may be, you want it to be something that you have a plan as far as how you're going to see that through. Now, obviously, do things come up and there are exceptions that were great, but like, you want to have, like, what's the most important thing is consistency. A lot of times what happens is that it's not built in any sort of consistent manner.
Right.
And then where do people then look to it? When like things get bad, then they're going to look for like the world of accountability. Like
a Band-Aid. Okay, so to sum up that nugget is, which frequency does the Rav recommend as the most important to solve for first? And your answer is the one you can be the most consistent with.
Well, let me ask you, what have you done and what have you seen in your programs?
I really believe that the quarterly, as a first step, because it incorporates making sure we have goals in the pillars that have been strenuously stress tested and created, to make sure that we're covering all relevant pieces of our life pillars and all relevant pieces of the work career pillars. So a quarterly goal setting process, and then a quarterly review of that. I would recommend as the first start.
Okay.
And especially because once the big idea around quarterly goals, and in the business world, these are a given, quarterly goals. In the personal work space and personal growth, we don't see it in so many places. We do see it coming through a lot more today. But once you've got those goals, which are 90 days, so they're far enough that you can do big things. But it's, it's 90 days. You got to wake up and get moving tomorrow. It's not next week. Well, I'll start next month. And I found that forces questioning of what's the next most important, which I'm between mines on weekly or monthly.
Got it.
I would probably go for weekly, because those weeks just come around and so much learnings and data come off each week to learn for next week, whether it's things that, well, we like to think of it either wins that we can grow from or learnings that we can adjust for.
Right.
So I would recommend, if somebody could only do two things, start with quarterly and then weekly.
Again, also, just to add on to that, I think that the power of, I would say, let's say the weekly ideas, again, is that no matter how important something is to us, life is busy.
Yeah.
And things happen. And, like even just like in my own life, like the past 2 days, like two like unexpected things with like two of my children, like took up like so much time, energy, things need to be rescheduled, etc., that like it's so easy to get off track so fast. So again, if something's like, really important to you, or you really want to make sure it happens, just because life has so much happening in it, sometimes you just need that kind of weekly consistent voice to like, okay, let's bring it back to the forefront and let's make sure we're staying on track.
So just to be clear, you're saying that you're doubling down on the importance of weekly based
I'm
on
just
how
adding on what I've seen in my own work. Like I was saying, like a lot of my clients I work with weekly. Okay. For that very reason, I feel like we can make real progress when we're like staying in it and kind of in some way fighting against the busyness of all other areas of life.
And generally what you're working with them towards is some kind of goal in different periods in the future, between 90 days, a year.
Everyone's different, whether it's, certain goals they want to achieve or something they're trying to navigate, or, but just being able to make sure that we're keeping that on the forefront of the busyness of life.
Right. Busyness of life, that is for sure.
You got it.
You're at 5 quarters, I'm at 2, so you got a lot of notes to share.
No, I was just writing about this today. I met with someone this week who I really has been a major positive influence in my life and has helped me tremendously with, building my own family. And she said to me very clearly, she goes, being a parent is a full-time job. So then the question becomes, okay, if that's a full-time job, but I also have another full-time job, like how do you balance the whole thing? Right? And okay, so these are, these are important questions to obviously get to and to speak about. How do you juggle everything? How do you, but like you're saying, I think life has become so busy and it's only getting busier. And therefore, to make sure the things that are really important are getting the attention, effort they need, it's almost a funny thing, but accountability becomes that much more important.
Yeah, especially for tracking signal versus noise and getting to things that are important to us and we want to achieve.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. I'd love to know what do you think are the most important components of an accountability process system, so people know what they're solving for?
I think that there are two things that really need to happen. Number one is clarity about what you're trying to achieve.
Planning.
And number two is clear practical steps as far as how to get there.
So those are both part of a planning process?
Those are, I would say, the planning is not just, again, it's number one is having a clear understanding of where you're trying to get to. And number two, clear practical steps of how to get there. That is, what you want to be held accountable for. Number one, getting that clarity. Number two, are you hitting those goals along the way? Now, a lot of stuff, what happens when you bring in some sort of accountability partners, they're going to deal with all of the things that get in the way of that. The blockages, the insecurities, the sidetracks, you name it. It's not just, we don't live in a black and white world. There's many parts of us. There's complications and things we do, like, hello. It's not just a robot where here's the end goal and, some AI program is going to break down the next practical steps and good luck.
One day.
Whoa, I hit that roadblock. I'm feeling insecure. These 5 things came up. My family needs me here. Like, the list goes on.
Oh, yeah. So steps are 1, get clarity on where you want to go, what you want to achieve. 2 is have a well thought out plan. And then 3 is the obvious that we've been speaking about, is what is the accountability process look like?
Right. And that accountability process will deal with all the things that hold you back or make things get back on track or whatever it may be.
Right.
If things were just so black and white, like who needs anyone just all of a sudden, make the goal, break it down into, practical next steps and good luck, see you later, mission accomplished. Doesn't work that way.
Something I've had on my mind I wanted to ask you for a while.
Uh-oh.
Couple breaths.
Okay.
What do you think about asking my wife to be my accountability partner?
I'm not the biggest fan of it.
Wow, you're so eloquent, Rabbi, because the language I was thinking through there.
Not the biggest fan of it. Listen, let's be very clear.
Yeah.
In the ideal marriage, you have 2 people who are doing everything they can to help the other person be successful. Once you now start holding the other to expectations that they need to be your accountability partner, I've yet to see that turn into something which is healthy and leads to more positive connection. I've yet to see that.
And positive outcomes. That was the whole goal.
Yeah, that's to say the least.
Just a sad
net
zero game.
I've yet to see that be a healthy route of how to go about it. Now, you may say, isn't there anyone out there who there's no one out there who loves us more, who wants us to succeed? Yeah, you're right. But doesn't mean now that turns into a business partnership of now she becomes your coach of where you're failing and where you need to succeed and okay? Now, I'll say very clearly, there's nothing that I'm going to do in my life that's major and important. I'm not going to speak out my wife and get her insights on and hear her sensitivities to. And that's there's nobody's advice who I want more than hers. She gets so much of the whole picture of who I am.
Wow.
But I'm not going to then say, okay, now please make sure I'm doing X, Y, and Z every single day. Whoa. You can push back if you feel differently, but...
No, I'll tell you what I was thinking about was in the first few weeks of marriage, I was taken aback that my incredibly amazing wife wasn't being managed well by my sauna updates. I thought it was an amazing fix to the home.
I hear. In my 20 years of spending time in the world of marriages, I've yet to see that be something which is positive and actually, brings a marriage closer together. Forget actually accomplishing the goals.
Right. Okay, now that we're on it, maybe we can close off with this idea.
Okay.
One nugget that you can give to all the husbands out there, or husbands to be, or the wannabe husbands, all and above. Everybody wants to grow as a husband, a potential husband, the husband to be. In your experience, the one most important thing that us men can focus on in stepping up that relationship. You're obviously accountability partner to a lot of husbands and have been over the years, and future husbands that you built up, such as myself in my time in Machon Yaakov. Is there one nugget that you can give out there to people in this pillar?
Again, I think I would just wrap it up with what we're saying as well. If this is an area of your life which is really important, think about ways of how you can be held accountable to make sure you're giving this relationship, the most precious relationship you have, the time, effort, and energy it deserves. That's what I would say, and that's what I have. I've said that for a long time, but I just think that it's everything as far as what can really impact a marriage in an incredible way. Everyone wants their marriage to be their number one priority. Everyone wants it to be great, but actually doing the things that are, necessary in order to make that happen, that's a hard thing to do. And therefore, when you bring accountability into it, that becomes a game changer. It can actually really help you get your marriage to where you want it to be. I believe we lost Harael here. Okay, lost Harael. Bring him back in. Lost you, bring you back in.
It seems that Max 2 crash.
There we go.
Never seen that before.
Okay, amazing.
What did I miss? You gave the nuggets?
Good stuff. You can watch the replay to get it.
Okay, amazing.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was
okay.
Fantastic.
Listen, this was amazing, and keep up your incredible work that you're doing in your own life with your company, and looking forward to our new endeavor together, getting this thing off the ground here, okay, which people will hear more about soon.
I plan to keep up pushing. Thank you. I just need to correct that any good work you see coming out of our company, I have to ascribe to our team, as you can attest. So thanks to them. And thanks to you, Rov. This was super insightful. I look forward to going back and getting those nuggets down and hard and cold. Amazing. Okay, well, hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Toda lecha.